And Congressman Steve Scalise from Louisiana is joining us, the House Minority Whip. Congressman, welcome to you. Your reaction to this news?
And once again, we still haven't heard a full explanation from the Department of Justice. And yesterday, Merrick Garland talked about the law being applied evenly. And I think that's really at the heart of the most anger you're seeing at this unprecedented action. Does anybody really think that they've applied these laws evenly to past presidents, to Hillary Clinton, to others who have had classified information? President Trump's making it clear he declassified this, but he also was complying with the intelligence agencies when they recommended to put some of the information behind lock and key. He did that. So he was already in compliance. They knew he was even out of the state. I mean, he's being harassed by the Attorney General of New York, who ran on a platform of going after him, not trying to find wrongdoing, just going after Donald Trump, because so many of these people have made a career out of just going after Donald Trump because they hate him and his family personally. And I think people are disgusted by that abuse, where you see agencies just targeting someone because they don't like him or his political views. That's not what justice is about. It's about being blind and about following the facts. And I think there's a lot of concern that that hasn't happened here.
Does it concern you, sir, that some may have been marked TS, top secret, or SCI, secret compartmented information?
We know this, that previous presidents have had classified information. And again, that's a conversation that goes on between the intelligence agencies and former presidents, where they allow certain things to be held, but held in certain ways. And again, if they had asked the president, Trump, to keep some of that stuff behind lock and key, he's already said he did that. So there's a lot of back and forth here. Also, the president has the ability, like any president does, to declassify information. And again, you're hearing President Trump say he did declassify a lot of that information. So, you know, does this warrant what is an unprecedented action that's never before happened in our country's history and still hasn't been explained days later by the Department of Justice?
Yeah, we did get that statement from AG Garland yesterday, Congressman, but it was not a clear explanation as to what spurred all of this. As we learn more details and the timing obviously coming into question, we know the judge signed off on this warrant on August 5th. It gave the FBI authority to conduct this search or raid, or whatever you're calling it, on or before August 19, 2022, and in the daytime between 6 a.m. and 10 p.m. So obviously a lot of folks are going to look at the timeline there. Could they have carried this out? That was a Friday that it was signed off on. Could it have been carried out if this was so urgent Saturday, Sunday? It happened on Monday morning around 9 a.m. The statement from the president, Congressman, I'll get you to react to that. To your point just now, number one, the former president said it was all declassified. He writes in a statement. Number two, they didn't need to seize anything. They could have had it anytime they wanted without playing politics and breaking into Mar-a-Lago. He says it was in secured storage. There was an additional lock put on it at their request. They could have had it anytime they wanted, and that includes long ago. All they had to do was ask. This seems to be the route the president has taken from go of all this.
That's right, and President Trump's been clear all along that he had been working with those agencies, as former presidents have as well. And then all of a sudden, it goes to this jump, to this unprecedented jump. And that's what's got a lot of people alarmed, especially when you look at the history. And you can't ignore the history, that there were people in some of these agencies from the day President Trump announced for president who were seeking to destroy him, to undo his ability to run for president, to try to get him removed from office when he was sitting as president, and now after he's left office, to still go after him personally. And I think that's really what is concerning people, is we know that happens in third world countries. We don't want that to be what the United States of America is about. And so that's why they have some serious questions to answer, because it sure looks that way when you look at the whole history of, I mean, people have lied on FISA warrants. They've lied. The dossier, was fabricated by a political campaign of Hillary Clinton and then ultimately used as a basis by the FBI to go after Donald Trump. So many times we've seen this, and it's just concerning and alarming, and it's not the way that they should be conducting business when justice is and should be blind. If we're going to have this system of justice in the United States, it's got to be a tenet that all people are treated equally. And if your name's Trump, you're treated one way, and if it's Clinton or Biden or anyone else, you're treated a different way. That's not how it should be.
As we've noted, you are the House Minority Whip. Republicans are not the majority party on Capitol Hill at this point. Are you confident there will be appropriate briefings, perhaps in classified settings, for the relevant committees on some of the background on this raid?
I'm very disappointed that that hasn't already happened. And I've talked to some of those people who are historically briefed in a classified setting on things like this. It hasn't happened in this case yet. It should have happened days ago. So why is the Justice Department continuing to withhold a lot of this information, even in classified settings where they have in the past briefed members of Congress, especially those members who are typically involved in those secure classified briefings?
You know, I was looking back. Dan Henninger had written a piece earlier in the week questioning and saying, suggesting everyone consider the current spectacle the U.S. is presenting to foreign adversaries in this moment. Multiple members of the sitting president's own party in the past week, Joe Manchin, Jerry Nadler, having openly abandoned Joe Biden for an election that is 2 years off. Days later, the previous president comes under explicit attack from the FBI. His piece was titled, to your point, Congressman, Mar-a-Lago search shows the swamp's Trump obsession, and says this FBI raid against a former president should have never happened. End of discussion. But what do you think to that point, though? As the world watches this, it's one thing, the country has a lot of questions about how this all played out, but the world is obviously watching this critical moment as well, Congressman.
The world is watching, and frankly, I think that's why you've seen so many problems with our foreign policy in the last year and a half, because the world recognizes we don't have a steady hand leading the United States government right now. You've seen our allies abandoned in certain ways. You've seen adversaries going and moving aggressively against our allies in other countries. You see it in Ukraine. You see it in Taiwan. You see what Iran continues to do. Where is the strength of leadership by the president to stand up and say, this won't happen under my watch? The president hasn't even acknowledged whether or not he knew about this prior to the execution of this plan. I mean, Merrick Garland's at least said he knew about it in advance and signed off. Did President Biden know about it in advance? He won't even answer that question. And that breeds distrust. It breeds a lot of questions about who's really calling the shots here.
Whip Scalise, I'd like to ask you about the reason lawmakers are back in town on a Friday in the middle of August, which is, of course, this tax and spending plan that Democrats got through the United States Senate. Soon's about to be your turn in the House of Representatives. The Congressional Budget Office, which is the nonpartisan gatekeeper, scorekeeper on these measures, has not fully evaluated the plan. Your thoughts on voting on it before you have a full indication of the impact of it?
We've already seen a lot of the devastating consequences this bill will do to hard-working families who are already struggling under President Biden's inflation, the high gas prices. Is this going to make it better or worse? Well, just look at what CBO has said so far. They haven't evaluated the whole bill. They have said this army of 87,000 new IRS agents, more than doubling the size of the IRS, that they will be going after people making less than $400,000. That would break President Biden's pledge. They said, by the way, that lower-income families will be paying $20 billion in new taxes just from the IRS agents. On top of that, they have an energy tax in this bill. So if you don't think you're paying enough for gasoline now, in this bill, you will be paying more for gasoline, more for your utility bills, because this bill has a multi-billion-dollar tax increase on energy. It's also got taxes that are going to hit small businesses and make it harder to create jobs at a time when inflation's already too high because of spending. They're going to spend over $700 billion more. Everybody knows the budget gimmicks. When they say it's going to reduce the deficit, does anybody really believe that? When they have 3 years of spending accounted for, even though it's permanent new programs where they expand Obamacare so that people making over $100,000 a year will get new Obamacare subsidies at the expense of lower income people who will be paying higher taxes. That's not what we should be doing at a time of inflation and, frankly, the recession that our country's in. This will make it worse. I've urged a no vote. We've whipped against the bill. Frankly, if we have 4 Democrats that vote no, the bill fails. So anybody out there watching who's represented by a Democrat in Congress, if every Republican votes no, as I'm sure we will all vote no, all we need is 4 Democrats to vote no, and this bill fails, and you don't get that gut punch that the middle class is going to get if this bill passes.
Not to mention the 87,000 additional IRS agents, Congressman. And the CBO did take a look at that. Fox just a short time ago confirmed that the CBO estimates the IRS audits of taxpayers making under $400,000 a year accounts for $20 billion. $20 billion in this Inflation Reduction Act.
Martha, there was an amendment to block that, Sandra. There was an amendment to make sure that would not apply to people making under $400,000, and every Democrat in the Senate voted against it, so the amendment was defeated. So clearly, their intention is not the millionaires and billionaires. Their intention is this 87,000 army. Think of an NFL stadium. In any NFL stadium in America, completely filled with new IRS agents going after people making less than $400,000 in violation of President Biden's promise. It's been guaranteed. We know it will happen. CBO confirmed it today.
Yeah, it proves that about $20 billion in revenue will be raised from increasing audits on anyone making less than $400,000 a year. That is exactly what this administration promised would not happen. That is according to the CBO looking at it. Thank you very much. Congressman, great to have you here. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, sir.
Great being back with you. Thanks.